Maestro, on behalf of the Boxing Voice, I'm here with renowned, esteemed, probably the best in the business when it comes to MMA, Mr. Ariel Helwani. How's it going, Ariel?
How are you, my friend? It's good to be here. I appreciate you having me, and I appreciate those kind words. Nice to speak to a fellow Montrealer. I know you're not from Montreal, but you went to school there, so for me, you're a Montrealer.
Absolutely, ex-Montrealer, lifelong Expos fan. And
I feel weird looking here when you're talking to me there. Can I look at you?
Right here, right. Look right over here. That's fine.
Look at here. Okay.
That's fine. Look right over here. So, MMA, man, like I said, best in the business as far as I'm concerned. If MMA is a 10 out of 10 in terms of your interest, where's boxing?
Man, it's getting pretty damn close. Honestly, I was an MMA fan, I remember watching it in 93, 94. My grandparents had an illegal box, and UFC 1 was like replaying over and over again. But I mean, at that point, I'm 11, 12. I knew what boxing was long before I knew what MMA was. As you know, Montreal's a great boxing town, and so Otis Grant, Howard Grant, Arturo Gatti. I went to see him at the Bell Center. And there's like a great scene there of Quebec fighters, and there still is till this day. So I used to go to a pool bar in DeCarry Square in Montreal, if you know DeCarry Square, called Jilly's, with my friends to watch all the HBO Boxing and the Showtime boxing events. I love boxing, and now I find the business of boxing to be fascinating. I love the fact that the fighters get paid more. I love the fact that they are pushed more, that it's not about the brands. Like, this is a fight where obviously Matchroom and MVP are involved, but let's be honest, top of the bill, it's Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. It's not the brand, it's not the promotion, and I love that. So yeah, I mean, if I'm 10 on 10 on MMA, I'm 9 on 10 in boxing. I'm watching everything. I'm a subscriber to everything, to DAZN, to ESPN Plus. I try to watch all the BT fights overseas, the Sky fights, the Boxer fight, everything.
So you grew up with those old fights at the Forum, those old fights at the Bell Center, maybe Jerry Park too, Stefan Woulette,
Yes.
Eric Luca.
Yes,
Davey Boy Hilton, yeah, absolutely. So you go way back in the Montreal scene.
Oh, for sure. Russ Amber, I would watch his show, I think it was called In This Corner on TSN. I love this stuff. And my first job in TV was in 2003. I was a junior at Syracuse, and I got a summer internship to work at HBO. I applied because I was a massive HBO boxing fan. And so, that's my first job in TV. And I remember my first day at HBO, June of 2003, they said, hey, we're going to do a shoot with Roy Jones Jr., and I loved Roy Jones Jr. Y'all must have forgot. I loved all of that. They said, do you want to come? And I went to a hotel, and I sat in a room with, at the time, the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world, and I was blown away. I was just sitting in the back, and there was, I'll never forget, there was like this utility closet on the floor that we were all on. And one day someone's like, yeah, we know you're a big fan, go in there and take whatever you want. And they had all these old HBO boxing posters. Like, I get chills walking in there. It was amazing. So I took a bunch, and then I put them on my walls when I was a senior in university. So yeah, I love boxing. I adore boxing. I love fighting. I love pro wrestling, kickboxing. There was something about mano a mano, Saturday night, Las Vegas, the lights. So to me, this is not like MMA boxing. I was never those guys. You cannot find a single clip of me throughout my entire career shitting on boxing. Love boxing, and I feel like there's place for both.
Absolutely, and I'm sure you'll remember it was actually Eric Luca who fought Roy Jones Jr. on that day when he did the semi-professional basketball game and followed it up with a fight.
What did he play for, Tampa or something? It was in the ABA, right? And then he took a helicopter and he landed. I remember that whole scene. That was crazy. Yeah, that's right. Otis Grant also fought him, if you recall, and that was a big deal, and he got smoked.
No, absolutely. So I wanted to ask you a couple of things about MMA. When I was at college in Montreal, which we spoke about, I actually moved there because of boxing. I got into pride fighting as a fan. And at that time, there was a bit of a balance in MMA. I mean, it wasn't just one player in town. Now we've got Bellator.
Yeah.
Is another promotion important to the sport? I mean, is a balance of power necessary?
Not just one, multiple. 4, 5, 6. The more players, the better. For the fighters, to have more leverage, to be able to get more money, to have more opportunities. Because let's be honest, if you reach the end of the road with the UFC, where are you going to go, right? So you need that. So you need Bellator, you need PFL, you need one championship, you need these other promotions out there to give fighters an opportunity. And honestly, I believe rising tide lifts all boats. Like when there's more competition, the UFC will do better. They'll be forced to put on better fights and to put on a better product when there's someone nipping at their heels. I actually think that the business of MMA and the structure of the UFC is actually a lot more similar to pro wrestling than it is boxing, where you have one major promotion, WWE, UFC, and then you have these others coming up. Now, in the world of pro wrestling, I don't know if you follow, there's a promotion called AEW that's really starting. Yeah, they're trying to really galvanize, and they have a very rabid fan base. There is no AEW equivalent in MMA, and we need that. Boxing, as you know, is very different, right? You have your matchrooms, you have your top ranks, you have your PBCs, Queensberry, etc. And they all kind of do their thing, and the fighters can go all over the place, and you can have co-promotions. All this stuff is very rare in MMA. There's no co-promotions in MMA, ever. So the more the merrier, the more competition, the better. I'm in huge favor of that.
Well, also what's very different about MMA is the promotions control the world titles.
Oh yeah, there's no such thing as like an Ali Act. There's no such thing as a sanctioning body. There's no like official rankings. They have their own rankings. It's so different. It's completely different. There's no purse bids. Like all these little fun things that drive, I think, hardcore boxing fans crazy are kind of like a breath of fresh air for MMA fans because it is so tight. I mean, they rule with an iron fist, right? And they can, the UFC, because they have a 30-year head start on everyone. But I think as the sport evolves and grows, and it's a lot younger than boxing, it is imperative that the fighters get more leverage and rights and opportunities and money.
Last thing I wanted to ask you about is the kind of a campaign that Jake Paul has been on in terms of fighter pay, unionization, something that exists in other major sports. Where are you in terms of that? It sounds like you may be leaning towards that. I know I definitely am. But what does it say really when major fighters, world champions in MMA, are calling out boxers for major paydays?
Because they know what's up. They know where the money is. And it's kind of a sad thing, right? Now, let's be honest. The major stars in MMA and the UFC in particular are making more money than ever before. So respect, kudos. But there's still a long ways to go, right? I mean, the UFC doesn't open their books necessarily, but the word is 12 to 15% of their overall revenue goes to the fighters. That's absurd, right? When they sign a massive TV deal with ESPN and the fighters get 0% of that money, that's absurd. When they sign a $150 million deal with Crypto.com and the fighters have to wear that on their uniforms and they get $0, I mean, it's crazy, man. By the way, I didn't fall in love with fighting Roy Jones and Mike Tyson and all that because everyone was wearing the same thing. Why do we love our guys? Why, like Tyson walking out with the black shorts and the towel over his head is because they're unique, it's because they're different, because they all represent themselves. We don't get into fighting for everyone to look like, like they're playing in the NFL wearing the same thing. This is crazy to me. But again, this is what happens when you put the brand ahead of the fighters and the personalities. It's not something that I'm in favor of, but when the fighters don't have a collective voice, they can't do anything about it.
I mean, doesn't it speak volumes, though, when someone like a Rolly Romero essentially is making what a Francis Ngannou makes in a fight? And Francis Ngannou, what, about $500,000 in his last fight as UFC champion? Tyson Fury was just at a guarantee of about $30 million.
Yes, $30 million. What about Dillian White, who's nowhere near as accomplished or even famous as Francis Ngannou? He was the challenger. He was the B-side. And what did he get, $7 million? And Francis got no more than $650 for his title defense? It's crazy. I mean, honestly, when you see how the sausage is made, it gets a little deflating. And let me be very clear. I know boxing has its issues. I know it's not like, unicorns and rainbows here. But I do like the fact, to your point, a Rolly Romero, who's the B-side against Tank Davis, right? Great fight, tremendous fight, but Tank could sell out Barclays or sell a lot of tickets with or without Rolly, let's be honest, right? He's making the same money as the freaking heavyweight champion of the world in the UFC. Something doesn't add up.
Absolutely. Look, Ariel, thank you for your time. Have a good time this weekend here, and appreciate on behalf of the Boxing Voice.
For the video, feel free to hit the like, subscribe, and share. As always, if you want to support us to the next level, head over to the patreon.com/ThaBoxingVoice. We have tons of exclusive from Border Wars, from title, betting shows, the list goes on and on and on. But in addition to that, if you guys have questions for fighters, trainers, and promoters, this is where you can submit them. We will run out, get these questions answered, and put it back on the show just for you guys. Appreciate it. Peace.